This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, welcome to this lab, this hands-on DNS lab. So that's right, we're creating a DNS zone. We have a domain and we are going to create a zone for that domain and then we're going to publish it. So let's get started. We'll start by showing you a compute instance. I created a web server. And this web server is hosted on OCI. It's called OCI cert, and this is the IP address of it. So if I open another tab of my browser and if I paste the IP address right here, it should give me this web server that we created. And as you can see, this is not a domain name. This is the actual IP address. So the whole purpose of DNS is to map this IP address to a domain. And let's go ahead and do that. So it's quite easy. You go to networking and find zones. And what we're creating is a zone that will have many records, and we'll create 2 of these records. So let's go ahead and create a public zone. We'll deal with a private later. What do I want to call this zone? There's an actual live domain name that we're using, and we're doing it manually. We don't have any file to import from in this case. So I call this domain name is OCI cert.me. So it's a motivational domain for your certification. And it's in my caster compartment, and it's the primary DNS zone. So it's created, and when we create a zone, it's going to give us some records called the name server records that we need to take these records to the registrar where we purchase our domain name so they can point to Oracle. That's the whole purpose of the name servers. And these are the 4 name servers, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And this is the startup authority record. So we need to add a record because we have an IPv4 address. We're going to select the A record. And this is optional. I will add the www in front of it. And here I'm going to unlock so I can enter 30 seconds for the time to live. And then what is the IP address? So I need this IP address right here. And I'll paste it. And there we go. We have an A record. Nothing will happen unless we publish. So let's go ahead and publish the OCI cert. And we're publishing it. So you will think that if I come right here and enter www.ocicert.me, this will work. Let me close the server. So it's been published. And let's go ahead and click. And as you can see, it's not working. And you already saw the registrar. So what I'll do right now is I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to take these records to the registrar and configure it to completion. And once I do that and it's published, you will see this DNS record working. So I'll pause the video right now. Hello again, we're back. I have introduced that change into the registrar for that domain. And if we open a new tab, and if I type www.ocicert.me, we'll get that page. As you can see, now I'm using the domain name, and ocicert.me is a lot easier to remember than this IP address. So this concludes this lab. Next, we'll configure a private DNS zone. Thank you very much. Hello, welcome to a hands-on lab on DNS again, but this time is private zones. Previously, we created a public zone, a domain name that we map to an IP address of a web server, and that domain name is OCI-serve.me. We're creating a private zone now. Before we do that, let me go into compute instances, and I want to show you that I created another compute instance for the whole purpose of testing my private zone or my private domain name. And let's go ahead and retrieve the public IP address. I want to log in right now into this compute instance. And I want to show you something. So here, I'm going to load this. And I'm in. If I do a CURL into OCI.expert, nothing should be there. It doesn't resolve. So we'll make it resolve privately. So let's minimize this. And now we're going to go into networking zones, and we're going to create our private zone. These two domain names or zones were created automatically whenever you create a subnet within the virtual cloud network. It creates a protected zone that you cannot delete. Going to create one that is not going to be protected. It's ad hoc. You're creating it yourself. So again, we're going to be calling this domain name OCI.expert. It's going to be in my caster compartment, primary. I don't have an existing private view, so I'm going to be creating a new one, and I'm going to be calling it OCI expert, same as my zone without the dot. And we'll see why we need this DNS private view shortly. So now that we have it, let's go ahead and add a record. We're going to be adding an IPv4, so therefore we need an A record. This time I'm not adding a subdomain. I do need to establish my time to live, which is 30 seconds. And my address, so now we have our record. Let's go ahead and publish it. And the only step pending right now is that private view, that we need to associate this zone to my virtual cloud network. So you click on your virtual cloud network, and under the VCN information, you have the DNS resolver. So you open the DNS resolver, and you associate the private view. These rules and endpoints are when you want to communicate with other VCNs or outside of OCI. In this case, we are remaining within this virtual cloud network. I'm not in the DNS compartment, so I'm going to change to the caster compartment and select the private view that we just created. You see how it says not protected. And now we have our private view mapped to our virtual cloud network where our web server resides. So let's go back into a test compute instance, and I'm crossing my fingers. There it is. We retrieved the URL or CURL. Remember the message, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. Now you're seeing the code to it. That's why the test page was smaller than Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. And if I further do a ping into OCI.expert, you will see that the private IP is the one replying. There it is, 10.0.0.217. So this concludes this lab. Thank you very much. Hello, welcome to this lab. Today we're doing traffic management. And as you can see, I'm in my San Jose region. and I'm in my Castro compartment. So if I go to networking, you will see that under DNS management, we have traffic management and steering policies. Before I go there, let me go into my Frankfurt region. And I want to show you that on my compute instances, I have two of them. I created a server, pretty much a web server that is a replica of what I have here in the US. This is certification that this is my web server that says hello OCI certification candidate. The German version says the same thing, but in German. And what we're doing with this lab is we're steering traffic based on geolocation. That's what we're doing. And the other compute instance that I have here, this is a Windows machine that we can log in and basically open a browser and go to the same URL that we allocated for this. So if you go to the URL on Germany, it's going to be displaying this information. If you go to the same URL in the US, it's going to be displaying information in English. So let's go ahead and get started. So go to networking, traffic management, steering policies, and let me go back into San Jose. I want to create my rules in the San Jose region. So we'll click on create traffic management. And these are the options that you can steer traffic by load balancer, failover in case one goes down. Geolocation is the one that we're using. And I'm going to call it a name. I'm just going to call it Geo URL. I'll stick with the recommended time to lift. This one is hard-coded, so we'll leave it as it is. Now here, I'm going to call this one USA. And the answer will be the same, USA. Now, what type of record am I going to be using? I'm going to use my A record. So I need this address right here. And I'll enter it in the appropriate field. Now, in case this one fails for any reason, rather than having the failed version, probably this is optional. You don't have to do this. In this case, I decided that I'd rather have them seeing something in German, that a failed version. So I'm going to enter this one, enter pool 2, and I'm going to call this Germany as well, Germany, and also an A record. So now I am creating the policy, but before that, I need to provide the location. So this is what I have right here are the settings, and this is the geolocation of the user. So I want anybody in North America to select, and then my pool is going to be USA, first option. Second option is going to be Germany. And I'm going to add another rule. And now this time my geolocation is going to be Germany. And because we have many countries, let me start typing. So here it is. So this case, my geolocation option 1 is going to be Germany, and option 2 is going to be USA. I do want to create a health check. I don't have one, so I'll create a new one. And I'm going to call it Keep Alive. So every 30 seconds, it's going to be doing an HTTP request to those servers. And if they reply, then they're fine. If they don't, then it will indicate that there's problems, and it's going to switch over and apply that second option that we have over there. Attached domain. So remember that on the DNS, we created a customized domain. That domain is OCI-cert.me. So I'm going to be creating a subdomain on top of it. So it's going to be world. So what this means, if you click here on this little I, rather than if I'm using example.com, in this case, I have OCI-cert.me. So if I use the subdomain, it will be subdomain.example.com. So in this case, it's going to be world.ocicert.me. This resides in the Castro compartment, and this is the zone that we're creating. So every time that anybody types world.ocicert.me, if they're in the US, then it will display the English content. If they're in Germany, it will display the German content. So let's go ahead and create the policy. Means I don't have anything global, so outside of those two regions, it's going to be select based, my first option. So now that the policy is created, before I go and test it out, I want to show you something. We went to networking to start managing our traffic management and string policies. We created a health check, and that doesn't reside within the networking. It resides here under identity and security. Remember that we call it keep alive. So here, not identity and security, I'm sorry, observability and management. If I go and look for health checks, you should see the keep alive health check that we just created, located right here. So now let's go ahead and test this out. I'm here in the US, so I'm going to type world.ocicert.me. And there it is. So it's detecting that I'm in the US. I'm physically located in the US. If we go back into my compute instances right here, and if I select instances, and then if I change this to Frankfurt, Germany, you will see the IP address of my Windows machine. So I'm already logged in. And here it is. You see that this is that compute instance. If I open my browser, and let me open a new tab, or actually let me highlight this, and here we go. So I'm going to type world.ocicert.me, and you should see the German content. And there it is. So this concludes this lab. Thank you very much.